My brother lost our parents' $2 million inheritance through bad investments, and they demanded I share my part of the grandfather's gift to save the family name since family looks out for each other. Last week at our family Christmas dinner, my parents, 58F, 62M, decided to announce that they were giving their entire estate worth over $2 million to my brother William, 32M. I, 29F, sat there completely shocked as my mom explained that William deserved it more because he had a proper career as a stockbroker while I was just a high school teacher. She told me I needed to work harder if I wanted nice things in life. For some context, William has always been the golden child. Growing up, our parents made it clear that they had different expectations for us. They sent William to an expensive private school from kindergarten through high school, costing over $30,000 a year, while I attended public school. When he struggled with his grades, they hired the best tutors money could buy. Meanwhile, I maintained straight A's on my own while working part-time jobs since I was 16. The favoritism continued through college. They paid for William's full tuition at an Ivy League university, bought him a brand new car for graduation, and even covered his rent in a luxury apartment. I had to take out substantial student loans and work multiple jobs, tutoring, waitressing, and retail, just to afford a tiny studio apartment with 3 roommates. I often went hungry just to make rent. Despite this, I never complained because I loved learning and was passionate about becoming a teacher. What makes this even more frustrating is that I was the one who helped William succeed academically. He struggled severely with math and science throughout school. I spent countless hours tutoring him, helping with homework, and even writing some of his papers. Without my help, he likely wouldn't have graduated college. He never thanked me for any of it. The Christmas dinner started normally enough. We gathered at my parents' house like we do every year. My grandfather Harrison, 85M, was there, along with my aunt Patricia, 55F, and her husband James. William arrived late as usual, immediately bragging about some big deal he had just closed at work that would make him partner. I shared stories about my students' recent science fair project and how one team had qualified for state finals. That's when Mom interrupted to make her announcement. She went on about how proud they were of William's success and how they wanted to ensure their hard-earned money went to someone who would use it wisely. She talked about his fancy apartment, his expensive car, and his 6-figure salary as proof that he deserved it more. When I asked why they were completely cutting me out, Dad just shrugged and said they had already helped me enough by paying for my first 2 years of college before I switched from pre-med to education against their wishes. The way they announced it was so humiliating, right there in front of everyone at Christmas dinner. William just sat there with a smug smile while Aunt Patricia looked uncomfortable and Grandfather Harrison stayed unusually quiet. I felt tears welling up in my eyes as Mom continued listing all the ways William was more successful than me. She even brought up my recent breakup with my ex-fiancé 2 years ago as evidence that I made poor life choices. My boyfriend Mark, 31M, had wanted to come to dinner but had to work. Now I'm glad he wasn't there to witness my humiliation. I couldn't hold back my tears and ended up leaving early. On my way out, my mom actually told me that maybe this would motivate me to finally get a real job instead of wasting my potential teaching kids. She said I could have been a doctor by now if I hadn't been so stubborn about wanting to teach. I drove home crying that night thinking about how after everything, after helping raise William, after being the responsible one who never caused trouble, after choosing a meaningful career helping others, this is how they saw me. When I got home, Mark was furious. He wanted to drive straight to my parents' house and confront them, but I asked him not to make things worse. He's seen firsthand how much I pour into my job, staying late to help struggling students and spending my own money on classroom supplies. The next day William had the nerve to text me saying I was being dramatic and that Mom and Dad were right. I could have been successful like him if I had tried harder instead of taking the easy way out with teaching. He said maybe I should learn from this wake-up call. This coming from someone who still calls me whenever he needs help with his taxes or basic math. I blocked his number after that. I've barely slept this past week thinking about it. My students mean everything to me and I'm proud of being a teacher. Just last month, a former student wrote to tell me that my biology class inspired her to pursue medical school. That kind of impact means more to me than any amount of money. But knowing my own parents value me so little because of my career choice really hurts. Mark says I should cut contact with them, but they're still my parents and this is still hard to process. Update 1. You won't believe what happened. Yesterday my grandfather Harrison asked to meet me for coffee at this small cafe downtown where he used to take me when I was little. He had been unusually quiet during the Christmas dinner drama, but I figured he just didn't want to get involved since he rarely interferes in family matters. I almost didn't go because I've been avoiding family members since the incident, but something in his voice when he called made me change my mind. When I arrived, he was already there at our usual corner table. After we ordered, he pulled out an envelope and slid it across the table. Inside was a check for $1.5 million. I actually dropped my coffee cup when I saw the amount. The waitress had to bring extra napkins to clean up the mess. He had been disgusted by my parents' behavior at Christmas dinner. He said he had barely slept that night, thinking about how they had humiliated me in front of everyone. The very next morning, he had contacted his lawyer to start the process of changing his will. He revealed that he had always planned to split his estate equally between me and William, but after seeing how they treated me, he decided I needed it more. The check was just an advance from my inheritance because he didn't want me to wait until he passed away to get the support I deserved. Then he told me something I never knew. He had actually worked as a high school science teacher for 15 years before starting his construction business. He said watching me get belittled for choosing to teach had brought back memories of his own family's disapproval when he chose education over joining his father's law firm. The construction business only came later when he wanted to provide more for his family, but he said teaching had been some of the most fulfilling years of his life. He went on to tell me how he still gets letters from former students, now in their 60s and 70s, telling him what an impact he had on their lives. He pulled out his wallet and showed me a worn photo of his first class that he still carries with him. That's when I started crying. He said my parents were fools who cared more about status than substance, and that shaping young minds was worth more than any amount of money William could make as a stockbroker. When I tried to refuse the money, saying I didn't want to cause more family drama, he actually got stern with me for the first time I can remember. He said my parents had shown their true colors, and he wanted to make things right. The money was mine to use however I wanted, for a house, to pay off my student loans, to set up a college fund for my future kids, or even to create a scholarship fund for my students if that's what I chose. He said he had watched me struggle through college, working multiple jobs while William got everything handed to him, and he regretted not stepping in sooner. I completely broke down crying right there in the cafe. Harrison moved to my side of the booth and hugged me like he used to when I was little. He told me about all the times he had witnessed my parents' favoritism over the years, how they had skipped my high school graduation to attend William's college graduation on the same day, how they had refused to help when my car broke down during student teaching but bought William a new car just because he wanted one, how they had blamed me when William nearly failed out of college even though I was the one who helped him pass his classes. He said their Christmas announcement had been the last straw. He couldn't stand by anymore and watch them destroy my self-worth just because I had chosen a career helping others instead of chasing money. Before I left, he made me promise to deposit the check right away and start looking for a house in a neighborhood I actually wanted to live in, not just what I could afford on a teacher's salary. Mark was absolutely floored when I told him that evening. At first he thought I was joking, he actually made me show him the check to prove it was real. Now we're already looking at houses in better school districts where I can keep teaching but in neighborhoods we never thought we could afford. We found one with a huge backyard where we could start a family, and it's only 10 minutes from my school. I haven't told my parents or William about the money yet. I know they're going to be furious when they find out, especially since William has been texting me through Mark's phone trying to convince me to apologize to our parents for ruining Christmas dinner. But for the first time in my life, I feel like someone in my family truly sees and values me for who I am, not who they wanted me to be. Update 2. Well, the other shoe finally dropped. Word got back to my parents about Harrison's gift after Aunt Patricia saw me at Mark looking at a beautiful colonial house in her neighborhood. She mentioned it to my cousin Emma, who told her mother, who obviously couldn't wait to tell my mom. Yesterday evening, just as I was grading papers, my parents showed up at my apartment unannounced. Mom was crying before she even got through the door. I hadn't seen them since Christmas dinner, and honestly, they looked terrible. Dad had dark circles under his eyes and Mom's hands were shaking as she demanded to know if the rumors about Harrison's money were true. When I confirmed it, showing them the paperwork for the house we were about to close on, they completely lost it. Mom started screaming about how I had manipulated Harrison and turned him against them. She accused me of playing the victim at Christmas dinner just to get sympathy. Dad paced around my tiny living room, saying it wasn't fair for me to get such a large sum when I hadn't earned it like William had. They insisted Harrison should split the money equally between me and William because that's what fair families do. I stayed calm and reminded them about their speech at Christmas dinner. About how William deserved everything because he had made better choices. About how I needed to work harder if I wanted nice things. That's when Mom dropped a bomb that explained their sudden interest in fairness. Apparently William had lost almost $800,000 of their inheritance money already in some risky cryptocurrency investments. He had promised to triple their money but instead lost most of it in just 3 weeks. They were worried he would blow through the rest soon at the rate he was going. Mom started listing all the reasons William needed the money more than me. He had a lifestyle to maintain. He had country club memberships to pay for. He had to keep up appearances with his work colleagues. Meanwhile, I was just a teacher who lived simply anyway. Actually suggested I could keep living in my cramped apartment and give the house money to William instead. I couldn't help but laugh at their hypocrisy. When they thought William was successful, they had no problem giving him everything and telling me to work harder. They had humiliated me in front of the whole family, made me feel worthless for choosing to teach, and now they wanted my help? I told them they had some nerve showing up at my door demanding money after how they treated me. That's when Dad played his final card. He said if I refused to help William, I would be responsible for ruining the family name. Apparently, William had been bragging about his investment skills at work, and if word got out that he had lost everything, his career would be over. Mom added that my selfishness would destroy my brother's life. I asked them to leave. They refused at first, saying they wouldn't go until I agreed to talk to Harrison about splitting the money. I had to threaten to call the police before they finally left, but not before Mom said I was breaking her heart and Dad warned me I would regret this decision. This morning, Harrison called. My parents had shown up at his house at 7 a.m. making the same demands. He said he had never seen them so desperate. But he shut them down hard, telling them the money was his to give as he pleased and if they were so worried about William, they could write him another check themselves. He reminded them how they had bragged about William's success and my failure at Christmas dinner, and said they had created this mess with their blatant favoritism. He wasn't going to enable it anymore. The best part? Harrison told them he had already signed the house contract as a co-signer to ensure they couldn't interfere with the purchase. He said the look on their faces when he mentioned that was priceless. I'm still worried they might try something else, but knowing Harrison has my back makes me feel so much better. Update 3. It's been a rough couple of months but things are finally settling into a new normal. William lost another million on what he claimed was a sure thing investment in some tech startup. He had to sell his luxury apartment and his BMW. Last week, he tried reaching out with a long email about how sorry he was for everything and how much he had changed. The email ended with a request to loan him $300,000 to get back on his feet. I blocked his email address just like I had blocked his phone number. My parents have been sending flying monkeys nonstop. Aunt Patricia called crying about how William had to move back home with them. My cousin Emma messaged about how depression runs in our family and I shouldn't abandon my brother in his time of need. Even my old high school friend Lisa, who I haven't spoken to in years, reached out saying my parents had told her about the situation and how families should stick together in hard times. Funny how that principle only applies when they want something from me. Mark and I moved into our new house last month. It's everything we dreamed of: 4 bedrooms, a huge kitchen, and a backyard where we plan to build a swimming pool next summer. I'm still teaching at the same school and loving it more than ever. One of my students just won a state science competition, and the prize money is helping fund her college education. That means more to me than all the money in the world. Harrison comes over for dinner every Sunday now. He's become more of a father to me in these past few months than my dad has been my entire life. He helped us pick out furniture for the house and even brought over some of my grandmother's old china that he had been saving. He says the house feels alive again now that there's someone to share meals with. The extended family has split into 2 camps. Those who think I should share Harrison's money with William keep sending guilt-tripping messages about karma and doing the right thing. The others, who have apparently also experienced my parents' manipulation over the years, have been incredibly supportive. My cousin Rachel even confessed that my parents had tried to get her to sell her small business and give the money to William for his investments. I won't lie, sometimes when I'm grading papers late at night, I feel a twinge of guilt about William struggling. We used to be close when we were very young, before our parents' favoritism drove us apart. But then I remember how he treated me at Christmas, how he never once stood up for me against our parents' cruelty, how he looked down on my career choice while asking me for help with basic math. I've made peace with keeping my distance from that toxicity. My parents still haven't given up. They tried ambushing me at school during lunch break last week, causing a scene in front of my students. The principal had to ask them to leave and is now considering a restraining order. They also showed up at our new house on Sunday when Harrison was over for dinner. He walked out to talk to them while Mark and I stayed inside. Whatever he said must have been harsh because they left in tears, but I'm done feeling responsible for their emotions. Harrison says I've done nothing wrong by protecting myself and my future. He says sometimes the hardest thing is standing your ground when everyone expects you to cave in to keep the peace. After a lifetime of trying to earn my parents' approval, I'm finally choosing my own happiness. And you know what? It feels pretty good.